into the Solo Shot Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Dom Anna. Happy Solo Shot Saturday, everyone. Apologies for the technical issues with the first start of the stream, but we are live here. So um, just gonna ramble a little bit so the few people that might have seen the notification the first time can get back over here. But the Celtics, repping today, are in the NBA Finals against the Dallas Mavericks, and Game 1 was on Thursday night, and the Celtics, like they have this entire postseason run, have came out victorious by a wide margin. Now, I am not going to say that this series is over by any means. Luka Doncic is one of the best players in the NBA, and Kyrie Irving is an assassin scorer. But I'm feeling good right now, and I hope that this feeling continues. The Celtics have disappointed me multiple times over the last couple of years, and when you're watching a 500 baseball team as your favorite team in the sport, seeing your NBA team in the finals doing well is a very nice boost to my just overall mood and thoughts as a sports fan here in the Boston area. But nonetheless, I digress. We are into the first topic today, which is former number one overall pick Spencer Torkelson was optioned by the Detroit Tigers earlier this week. So far in 2024, Torkelson is batting just above the Mendoza line, 201 average. This guy has negative 1.2 WAR and has flat out said that he just is not using the right approach in the batter's box, that he's trying to turn on things and he's not being able to catch up to pitches. After a breakout campaign in 2023 where Torkelson hit 31 home runs, it is very, very shocking to see a number one overall pick like that a year after his breakout season get demoted. And it is just unreal that this is happening this year. A lot of people expected Torkelson to be a big part of the reason why the Tigers took that next step in the AL Central and competed. Nobody could have seen the Kansas City Royals turnaround happening, but with what I knew the Twins were and with what the Guardians have shown they can be, this demotion for him, I hope he's able to come back from this stronger and make amends. But when you look at the other top prospect, top legend guys that have gotten sent down, it's happened to a lot of them. But typically, it hasn't happened when they were established major leaguers. Even Mike Trout, when he was sent down early in his career, he had shown flashes, but he had not had a 30 home run season and then gotten given up on. So I'm hoping Torkelson can go down, can change his approach, take the pressure off, get healthy, come back, and be what the Detroit Tigers penciled him in to be, a middle of the lineup bat with legitimate power. But nonetheless, seeing that this week was very shocking. I know he was not playing well, but when you have a guy that you've invested so much in, that has had the success in the major leagues as recently as last year, and you give up on him here in June, it is shocking nonetheless. But there was a more positive thing for the game of baseball. I had not seen a pitcher hitter matchup have so much positive just buzz around it since Shohei Ohtani faced Mike Trout in the World Baseball Classic. And Paul Skeens and the Pirates faced off with Shohei Ohtani and the Dodgers. And while the Dodgers had the last laugh, Skeens, in his first opportunity to face Ohtani, blew 300-mile-per-hour pitches past him for a strikeout. Ohtani did get him in the next at bat for a home run, but that's going to happen when you're facing one of the best players in the world. And it was everything you could have hoped for because both sides had a win, and the team that was better ended up winning the game. But Paul Skeens is taking over this sport by storm. I'm hoping that with that pressure that he's putting on his elbow, throwing those 100-mile-per-hour pitches, that he can stay healthy, because people are going to want to see him facing all the major hitters in the sport, whether it be Judge and Soto, Ohtani, Mookie Betts. All these big matchups are going to be stuff that fans turn into. And I talked about this when he first got called up, but him having a celebrity girlfriend that a lot lot of people that aren't baseball fans are a fan of. I'm hoping that even if it's not in the quite the same stratosphere as Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce, that we can see an influx of younger people tuning into games of a team that they might not have otherwise, tuning into a sport that they wasn't on their radar, hasn't been for a long time, and seeing Paul Skeens not be afraid and go right at Shohei Ohtani, it was absolute must watch baseball, and I'm excited to see his next start. He has been super impressive thus far to me. But there was something that happened this week that, I mean, Shohei Ohtani was at one point a cloud of suspicion that he'd be in danger. But the Major League Baseball investigation found four players guilty of gambling. San Diego Padres infielder Tucupita Marcano was banned for baseball for life. Um, he placed about 387 bets totaling over 150,000 from October 2022 to July with a legal sports book. He had 149 games of major league experience and became the first active player in a century banned for life because of gambling. Now, if you remember when Pete Rose was banned for gambling, he was no longer a player, he was a manager. So he is the first one to be banned since the dead ball era. And it, I just don't understand how stupid you can be. I'm gonna go on a little bit of a soapbox here because as a Hall of Fame aficionado and fan, uh, I hear this all the time that I can't take the Hall of Fame seriously because Pete Rose isn't in it. Pete Rose will get into the Hall of Fame someday. They're just waiting till he dies. Baseball has had a black and white rule since the Black Sox, well, since before the Black Sox scandal, but the Black Sox scandal really forced that rule home. And it's that you do not bet on the game if you if you are involved in the game, whether you're a manager, an umpire, a trainer. You do not bet on the game of baseball. It is illegal. It is immoral. And it's posterized, especially since the Black Sox scandal. It is posterized all over the place in the handbooks, in the locker rooms, in your contracts. You are not to gamble on the game of baseball while you are playing it in the major leagues. And if Pete Rose isn't a living example for all other players, you can look at the Black Sox, many of which who have been dead for decades, and none of them have gotten inducted into the Hall of Fame, worthy or not. Pete Rose is never going to be inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame. And while Marcano was nowhere near a Hall of Fame path, you are getting a special opportunity to play the game of baseball professionally, to play the children's game for your job, for your income. And you're going out there and you're placing bets. Marcano reportedly only won four of those 387 bets. So he wasn't even good at gambling. He didn't make more money than he was making as a minor league, major league player. And it is just so dumb. I don't understand how you go out there when you know the story of the 1919 Black Sox, when you know that Pete Rose has been banned from baseball for decades for gambling on baseball, that you go out there as an active major leaguer and you place bets. I completely understand that betting has become as easy as it possibly is. You can download all these sports books on your phone and bet anywhere in the United States at any time. They'll take your money whenever, and you can win money whenever. And Marcano may have an addiction with 387 bets and most of them not being hits, but you can't do it. And the fact that nobody in his family, none of his teammates, none of his agents pulled him aside and knew what was going on. I'd understand if it was only a couple bets that it could fly under the radar, but 387, that's part of his personality. That was part of his lifestyle. Somebody had to know what was going on, and nobody stepped in. Nobody helped him. And now Major League Baseball has banned this young man for life. for being one of the dumbest players in this opportunity. There are so many high school and college guys that would do anything to be in the opportunity that Marcano had, and he flushed it all away. And it's an absolute shame. Uh, he's not going to get the opportunity to be a true major league player with the pension. Um, and it's just a real shame that Marcano threw his career and life down the drain with this. I don't know what he's going to do now. And it is just absolutely insane. This is the biggest gambling scandal the game has had in decades. People were very scared that Shohei Ohtani was going to get in trouble for gambling on baseball. And I understand Marcano is not even a blip on the radar to what Shohei Ohtani gambling would be. But the fact is, we've known for decades that this is baseball's golden rule. Do not break it. And we had a scandal earlier this year, and players still get caught after the fact. Now, there were 4 minor leaguers uh, that were also banned for a year. Their bets were much less substantial. They all bet under $1,000 each. Former Red Sox prospect who's now in the Padres system, Jay Groom, Andrew Saalfrank, who's a Diamondbacks pitcher who's part of their World Series run out of the bullpen. He's in the minor leagues right now. An infielder, Jose Rodriguez of the Philadelphia Phillies. Each of those players wagered under $1,000 and are suspended for the year. Now, do I understand why uh, minor leaguers are only suspended a year, but major leaguers are suspended for life? No, I don't understand why it's that stark of a difference. I think it should be significant either way. Uh, but to see uh, a guy who's in a major league clubhouse and then 2 guys that have been in the major league clubhouse with Saul Frank and Rodriguez being dumb enough to bet on baseball, even if it's a $20 parlay, why are you doing it? Baseball has been clear on this for decades. You do not bet on baseball. 1-800 don't gamble. It is on your contract. It is in your handbook. It is in your clubhouse. It should be written on your forehead. Do not gamble. And I really hope that this isn't the first wave of a big conspiracy. Like I said, gambling has become so accessible for everybody in this country. Uh, I'm really hoping that this doesn't mean that they're going to continue to uncover more major and minor leaguers that were caught gambling. But I digress. This just cannot happen, and I really hope that this isn't the start of an epidemic with this younger generation of players that they think they can just get away with it. And I think that this sets a bad precedent for the minor leaguers because while they're waiting to get called up to the major leagues, they can kind of play in that gray area of, well, if I get caught, it's only a year. I'm blocked to the major leagues right now anyway. Let me gamble a little bit. Let me be a baseball player that gambled and then makes the major league roster. There needs to be more of a strict punishment. I don't know if they need up it to like 5 years, but it is absolutely insane that this is happening here in our Lord's year of 2024, that people are gambling on the sport of baseball after the Black Sox scandal, after Pete Rose's mess that he's been in for decades. He's the living embodiment of it. None of these guys are ever going to be in the Hall of Fame, and they're going to be looked back on as some of the biggest idiots in the sports history. Absolute shame, absolute travesty. Now, here at the Solo Shot Sports Podcast, we like to throw it back down the third base line to this day in baseball history. And June 8th is an absolute doozy. There were a few things that really caught my eye. One of them, which was technically Pacific Coast League, but still really cool nonetheless, was a man who I had never heard of before, and that being Cac Henley. He completed the longest complete game shutout in baseball history, professional baseball, where He blanked his opponents for over 24 innings to get the San Francisco Seals a 1-0 victory over the Oakland Oaks in the Pacific Coast League. 24 shutout innings. The man was begging for run support. But in 1909, that was hard to get. That was a dead ball era. Hitting a home run wasn't as uh, easy and normal as it is now. Another great one, June 8th, 1920. Hall of Famer Ed Roush of the Cincinnati Reds falls asleep in center field during a long argument in the infield. So an argument's happening between the defender, the base runner, and the umpire. Managers get involved, and it goes on for quite some time. And Ed Roush falls asleep in center field because he just cannot wait for this story to end. Absolute legend for that. But to me, the thing that was the most compelling was on this date in 1964, Hall of Famer Jim Catfish Hunter was inked with the Kansas City Athletics for $75,000. This comes after other teams decided to back off of Hunter when his little toe was blown off. I had never heard this story, and I just thought that it was an amazing thing to share with you guys. I know Jake was in the chat earlier, and Hunter is a Tar Heel from North Carolina. His little toe was blown off by his brother in a hunting accident in Kansas City. And for whatever reason, that scared scouts from other teams off, thinking that maybe it would affect his ability to pitch and run. And back then, pitchers hit. So teams backed off, and Kansas City jumped all over him. He was the youngest of 10 children in a family from Hertford. And he went on to lead the A's to win 3 championships in the 70s through a no-hitter, as well as won a Cy Young with the Oakland A's before then joining the New York Yankees in the late 70s and helping them win a couple championships too. Jim Catfish Hunter, a 5-time World Series champion, Hall of Famer, and a guy who was never the most overpowering strikeout pitcher, but went out there every 5th day and pitched. And a guy who I think is totally overlooked in the history of the sport because of the 70s in general. The 70s is just an era of baseball where it's not quite the golden era, the classic era anymore, but it's before the offensive renaissance in the 80s and 90s with performance enhancing drugs, expansion. But the 1970s had some of the greatest pitchers we've ever seen. Tom Seaver, Nolan Ryan, Steve Carlton, absolutely dominated. Juan Marichal towards the end of his career. But Jim Catfish Hunter was right up there in the decade with those guys, and he does not get talked about or appreciated the same to this day. And when you look at Jim Hunter's baseball reference page, it's not going to scream out to you as an absolute obvious Hall of Famer. But when you look at what he was able to contribute to in his 15-year career, it was Hall of Fame worthy to me. 224 wins, an ERA of 3.26 in his career. This is a guy who was an 8-time All-Star, had an ERA title, 5 World Series, won 20-plus straight games 5 times in a row. And on the ends of that 5-year streak, he had 18 and 17. He was just a guy that helped his team win. Didn't come out of the games. He finished a lot of his games and pitched innings, man. In 15 years, he threw 3,449 and a third innings. And he only gave up 1,248 runs in his career, earned 2,012 career strikeouts, and an ERA plus of 104 over his career. He had some years at the beginning that were rough. He had a year and a half with the Yankees at the end that wasn't his best stuff as injuries consumed him. But in that middle, he was a well above average pitcher, including his 1974 Cy Young campaign, where he had an ERA plus of 134. Absolute dominance from the Tar Heel, from the Hall of Famer, Jim Catfish Hunter, signed by the A's on this date in 1964. Went from Kansas City to Oakland, then to the Big Apple in New York. Go check out Catfish Hunter. And if you're a fan of cards such as myself, his cards and memorabilia are extremely affordable. Now, this is the exciting time of the year where all-star ballots are open. So I want you to go out there and make sure you vote sometime this season. Uh, when I was filling out my ballot, it was actually really interesting uh, seeing, especially on the National League side, how disappointing the field is between injuries and underperformance, especially in the outfield. There were no clear stars uh, for the National League in the outfield. And for that reason, especially, my National League All Star votes went to Jerkinson Profar and Teoscar Hernandez and good old Lourdes Gurriel, who was an All Star last year. Those three guys had the best stats in the outfield so far this year. But I just want to go through my ballot quick. I don't want this to influence anybody. In the American League, at first base, I had Josh Naylor, who's been a huge part of the Guardians' success this season. Second base, Marcus Simeon, who has 10 home runs and is top 5 in the league in WAR. Jose Ramirez at third base, who has been the catalyst for the Cleveland Guardians and has 17 home runs and a major league leading 55 RBIs. Gunnar Henderson at shortstop. Aaron Judge, Juan Soto, and Kyle Tucker in the outfield. I know Kyle Tucker is now hurt and may not be healthy in time for the All-Star game, but he was the clear number 3 to me. The catcher position in the AL is the one that I think is going to have the most discourse. Adley Rutschman was my vote, but Salvador Perez and Ryan Jeffers both have a real argument there. Adley Rutschman is, to me, one of the best young stars in the sport, and I would love to see him get the start in the All-Star game. He hit home runs from both sides of the plate this week, and is a guy that's going to push Salvi for that spot, especially with the O's fans showing out for him in the ballot box. And then Brent Rooker at DH, who was the A's lone All-Star representative last year, is having a really nice start to this year and is a big part of the reason the A's have been as competitive as they have been. On the NL side, Bryce Harper had his new position at first base. He gets my nod there. He's been having a fantastic year. Ketel Marte at second base, who has just been absolutely dominant, the lone bright spot, I'd say, in the Diamondbacks offense this year. Alec Boehm, who has a ridiculous amount of RBIs and has been really good with the glove this year. I gave him the nod at third base. Mookie Betts, your 2024 NL MVP at shortstop. Like I said, Lourdes Gurriel, Teoscar Hernandez, and Jurgensen Profar were the best offensive statistics in the outfield. William Contreras has been clearly the best catcher in the National League and arguably the best catcher in baseball for the last year and a half. So he gets my respect there. And then Shohei Ohtani. Yes, I have Shohei Ohtani over Marcell Ozuna. And it's not just because Marcell Ozuna is a bad person that I do not want to reward, but when you look at the National League lineup, I always try to vote for statistics first, and then my tiebreakers are star power. So that's why Adley Rutschman got over Salvador Perez for me. It was star power. They were close enough offensively where that's where I leaned. It's the All-Star game. You want the stars out there. And not that Salvi Perez isn't a star, but people aren't going to the ballpark to see him. Shohei Ohtani is not only the biggest star in the sport, not only has over 3 WAR this season without playing the field, but in the rate stats, his batting average, his on-base percentage, his slugging percentage, he is well ahead of Marcell Ozuna, though the offensive counting stats, the home runs and the RBIs are a little bit less. Uh, Marcell Ozuna is having a nice season with the way the Braves have performed this year, between Acuna's injury, Albies and Austin Riley taking a step back. Olsen not hitting quite as many home runs as he did last year. Sean Murphy's been hurt. Michael Harris. Uh, Marcell Ozuna is probably going to be an all-star, but why would you want Marcell Ozuna in the starting lineup over Shohei Ohtani. As a baseball fan, even my Braves fans that are in the chat, when you have a National League lineup where if you go based on statistics, you got guys like Alec Boehm, Lourdes Gurriel, Teoscar Hernandez, and Jurgensen Profar already in the lineup, you're gonna make the lineup even less sexy by going Marcell Ozuna over Shohei Ohtani when stats are pretty dang close. I don't get it. I've seen a lot of people arguing for it on X. And to me, Shohei Ohtani, if he wasn't performing, I wouldn't be arguing for him. But he's been performing, and it's close enough where the star power, which with him is the star power, capital the, uh, I just can't imagine anyone else being the National League starters at DH. So go vote. I will leave a link in the description below and tell me what parts of my ballot you agree with, what parts you're going to disagree with. And over time, as these players are now playing for the votes, partially, they're more so playing for their team success. There will be changes over the next couple weeks while we get towards the all-star break for guys that start slumping that are in the lineup right now for me, and guys who didn't get off to the best start. Maybe they had like a kind of mid start and they get really hot into the all-star break. They could also garner some support, especially if they have that star power. A guy like Fernando Tatis was very close statistically, and I almost put him in there. But Jurgensen Profar on his own team is beating him out by a good margin. So let me know what you think in the comments below. Make sure you go out there and vote. Don't stuff the ballot box with just your favorite team. Try to be objective. Try to go out there and pick the best players you can. There's a lot of fun discourse this year, and there's a lot of great players. Remember, if a player is on a team where there's not a lot of other stars, they're going to be picked as a reserve for that team, most likely. So that could also be a tiebreaker if star power is not something you consider. I appreciate you guys spending part of your Saturday with me. I hope you guys have a great week of watching baseball. Go Celtics, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.